Taylor Swift and Sylvia Plath, united in feminine drive, a poet's perspective from a new book. Sylvia Plath achieved posthumous fame as a representative of high art, but don't be fooled about her artistic goals, writes Maggie Nelson. Taylor Swift has pursued, and received, fervent, ecstatic, and communal adoration from millions of fans. It's nothing like what a poet, even a beloved one like Sylvia Plath, was after, right? Author and poet Maggie Nelson sees a real connection between them, as explored in this excerpt from the new book, The Slicks, on Sylvia Plath and Taylor Swift. Some people grouse that Taylor Swift's artistry is tainted by its being the engine of a billion-dollar industry, and that her creativity cannot be considered apart from her capitalism. Sure, but welcome to the world of pop music. It ain't poetry. Swift knows this. Rather than identify herself solely as the tortured poet, she signs the summary poem in the liner notes of the Tortured Poets Department as the chairman of that department, giving vibes more boardroom than Baudelaire. There is much that poetry and pop music share, a connection to an oral tradition, a kinship between lyric and line, and the capacity to create anthems that can galvanize a public and offer private sustenance, both. But in regard to audience and marketplace, they occupy nearly opposite positions. Pop music is an accessible commodity marketed to the masses that can bestow great fame and fortune upon its participants. Poetry's audience, by contrast, is notoriously small, barring a few exceptions, usually involving work of dubious literary quality. The genre does not sell enough to make its authors rich, or even to pay them at all. Poetry more often devalues the material it touches. A piece of paper with nothing on it has a definite economic value. If you print a poem on it, this value is lost. Poet Charles Bernstein, quoting James Sherry. As a result, poetry occupies both a degraded and exalted place in capitalist culture, insofar as it represents a noble, or idiotic, devotion to an artistic pursuit which, for the most part, repels capital and compels but a tiny subset of an already small reading public. Nonetheless, poetry and pop music share a link to the project of fame. Since antiquity, poetry has served as a privileged place from which to praise, memorialize, and promote, in short, to make famous, and to grant a form of immortality, however fantasized. In the epic tradition, those made famous are typically elites, gods, and war heroes. In the lyric tradition of love poetry, they are the poet's beloved and slashed or the poet himself. I say himself because the posterity project has been primarily, though not exclusively, a patriarchal one, from Homer to Shakespeare to Tennyson. The poem as compensation for death, as vehicle for preserving legacy, as consolation prize for lost or impossible love, as salve for the anxiety of being nobody or being forgotten. These are preoccupations common to patriarchy, wherein men have been historically granted access to things that women did not have to gain or lose, a name that carries on war stories, fortunes held in their name, and so on. Female poets have thus generally had a much weirder relationship to fame. Think of Emily Dickinson, who is probably, along with Sylvia Plath, the most famous of female American poets, maybe of all American poets. Dickinson lived a notoriously sequestered life, eventually speaking to others through a door. While alive, she published but 10 of the nearly 2,000 poems she wrote. From her ambersed outpost, she wrote remarkable lines such as, "Fame is the one that does not stay," / "Its sick occupant must die." Fame in Dickinson always appears in a dialectic with obscurity and belatedness. It's as if she knew full well, like Plath, the force of her genius. Her secret was that she was keeping that secret from the world, only for it to one day out. The past 60 years have seen radical changes in the public positions available to women in lyric. Think Audre Lorde, Nikki Giovanni, and more. But despite poetry's communal rituals, the open mic, the reading series, ritualized inclusion at weddings, funerals, and inaugurations, it remains mostly a private sport, written and read by people in their solitude. Pop music, on the other hand, is called pop because it's popular. People can enjoy it alone, but we tend to enjoy it together at dance parties, listening parties, live shows, the gym, skating rinks, or just driving around, singing in unison. Yet even with this vast audience, pop music is still not thought of as a vehicle for lasting fame in the way that poetry is. While poetry can be a young person's game, it is also, thankfully, one for the aging and old. It does not rely on a singer capable of performing for 3.5 hours in compression hose and a sequin onesie. The written word's claim on immortality is likely why Swift leans into its tropes when she wants a figure for something less evanescent than a song, as in Swift's short film For All Too Well, in which our female lead suffers a painful love affair, then emerges at a bookstore to sign copies of the book she presumably wrested from the debacle. See also TTP's bonus song, The Manuscript, in which Swift sings, "The only thing that's left is the manuscript/one last souvenir from my trip to your shores." The idea of the manuscript as lasting souvenir from an unconsummated or unrecoverable love harkens back to one of Western poetry's origin stories. The Greek god Apollo, the god of poetry, is consumed with lust for river nymph Daphne. Daphne prays to her river godfather to turn her into a laurel tree to evade Apollo's advances. Apollo picks its laurel leaves to signify a consolation prize for his failed rape. Hence, the poet laureate. It's interesting to think about Swift's power in relation to this narrative. Rather than a mute, motionless, virginal Daphne, we get a hyper-productive, globe-trotting, serial dater who tells us, "I could go on and on and on. And I will, this love." The serial dating has been crucial to Swift's work, as it has turned a series of men, all the Kens, in her parlance, into footnotes to her career, rather than vice versa. It's this going on and on that has led to one of Swift's greatest innovations, the Eras Tour, which cannily merges lyric and epic traditions, transforming both by rooting them in girlhood and womanhood. The Eras Tour is truly a feminine epic, as theorized by poet Alice Notley back in the 1990s. When Notley set herself the task of writing such a thing, she says she immediately found herself faced with the problem of what do women do, when so often their role is, in Notley's words, essentially passive, sufferer, survivor. Notley found her answer in dreams, in which, she says, women participate in stories every night. Swift found her answer in feelings and in songs that hold their stories. Nearly all but a handful of the 44 songs on Swift's Eras set list are in the lyric tradition of love poetry. A first-person speaker addresses either a you or a he, and gives an account of her feelings over the course of their love, their failed love, or both. Yet the show itself, in duration, production value, audience size, and global reach, is absolutely epic. More epic still is its foundational concept. It's a heroine's journey, not through a war, but through the stations of the cross of Swift's emotional and artistic life, from girlhood to present day. In furtherance of her manuscript chick, Swift's outfit for the new TTP era set is a white Vivienne Westwood dress, printed with calligraphic writing, as if she herself has become the manuscript. Swift is not out to subvert femininity, but it's crucial that the eras are not defined by stations of life stereotypically associated with girlhood or womanhood, but by artistic achievement represented by the unit of the album. Thus, the eras do not unfold in chronological order, but rather in the order Swift wants them to appear. This is the radical takeaway for legions of her young fans. The story of your life is literally what your art makes of it. In a 2012 interview, when asked whether she was ever freaked out by her fame, which is, ironically, exponentially greater now than it was then, Swift responded, "This is what I've wanted to do my whole life. It never freaks me out. Never. Ever. But you know what does freak me out? When is the other shoe going to drop? I am so happy right now. So I'm always living in fear. This can't be real, right? This can't really be my life." I personally enjoy hearing Swift, and other very famous people, talk about the travails of being famous, but I have come to recognize that I am in a minority here. Hearing about fame from a woman in a position of obscurity, like Dickinson, may feel more tolerable than hearing about it from someone living through it, like Swift, or desperately desiring it, like Plath. I think here of Dickinson's weird little poem about being nobody just being somebody. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you? Nobody, too. Then there's a pair of us? Don't tell. They'd advertise, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog. To tell one's name, the livelong June, to an admiring bog. It's almost as if Dickinson is trying to convince herself that it would be unspeakably dreary, not just dreary but tawdry, slimy, to try to become somebody.